I'm live. Hello. Michael's here. Hello, Michael. Um, we can start with something on your mind. What's on your mind, Michael? Um, we have yet to have that one-on-one conversation. This could practically be it. No, actually, five other people have arrived. Hello and welcome. I've had a lot of ideas this week, and happy to share about them. But I also want to remind you that this is really an opportunity for us to play with your ideas. Um, and you're at a disadvantage doing that here because you're in text and I'm in talk. So I also want to remind you that tomorrow at 11 o'clock California time, I'm doing this new thing, which is it's going to be a Google Meet at that address here, um, where we do this conversation, but you get to talk as like I'm talking. That is, we get to have a real conversation. So I invite anybody to that who would like to come. And also, in the meantime, I want to just remind you, this is an opportunity for us to play with your ideas the way I play with my ideas all the time. Hello, Rob. Good to see you, ma'am. Yeah, so so I'll just start with something that's been on my mind. It's a topic we've talked about a fair amount already. That is how to become doubt tolerant. Um, to be able to sit with the problem without needing a fast answer to it. And I was drawn to this topic. So it's also interesting to figure out how an idea is born in one's mind. And for me, they're generally born through what I call intellectual bicuriosity. When I hear myself or someone else talking out both sides of their mouth, that kind of inconsistency is intriguing to me. I have become bicurious in that respect. If I hear myself talking out both sides of my mouth or saying three different things, that is intriguing to me. I find that I can listen all day to someone's ambivalence if they can recognize it. I find I can listen for about 5 minutes to someone's ambivalence if they deny that they're ambivalent. It really frustrates me. But so there were a couple of incidents that first got me on this question of how we avoid sitting with a problem. And only this week did I distill it down to three basic moves, which is it's not a problem, it's a problem, but it's already solved or it's unsolvable. And I remember two incidents where this came up. The first was I said to a girlfriend of mine, not sure how you feel about the uh, not sure how to feel about that. Okay, good. All right. I'm glad you're this is an important gesture. Not sure how to feel about that. I also like this gesture, which I use sometimes, which is you make a telling point. But anyway, you'll have to say more about where you find where your doubts arise, and I want to say more about where I don't like doubt because I still don't like it. Hey, let Kyle know if he needs some help. I'm willing and able. Good. By the way, Paula, that came up. We had a conversation yesterday, and what I realize I want most of all is an AI workflow that will turn dialogues into videos. That Kyle's on that, and you and I should talk. We all should talk. Those people who want to promote these ideas. It's not about me. It's about the ideas or about the way we're playing with ideas. So let me come back to this for a minute. So I'll get a seed of an idea whenever I hear myself or someone talking out both sides of their mouth. And I think probably the first one was I was telling a girlfriend that her baby talk made me uncomfortable. And within one breath, she said, I don't baby talk. I do baby talk and other people like it. And I don't know what you mean by baby talk. It's like you throw all the books at it to keep it from being a problem. And that one I haven't quite parsed yet. And it's not about her. She was a wonderful person. And I could have been wrong about the baby talk or whatever. That's not the point. What was interesting to me was the three-way deflection. And so I'm just going to start there. And I want you guys to be thinking about ideas you want to play with, including the ones related to this. The second time was when I got together with an old family friend. And they were, I'm just looking something up here that I want to read at some point here. That is on point. He asked me what I've been up to, and I said that I've been working on this origins of life research for the last 10, 15 years. I hadn't seen him in a while. Um, Basically, how would you ever get selves that are struggling for their own existence out of nothing but chemistry, which is not trying to do anything, not struggling to do anything? And his answer within one breath was, sounds like you got too much time on your hands. That's an unsolvable problem. And I saw it solved with an article I saw on Facebook about quantum consciousness. And it just tickled me pink to hear him say those three things all at once, which boiled down to sounds like it's not a problem. It sounds like you got too much time on your hand. That is, you're fussing over problems that are not problems. That's what he meant by that. It's unsolvable was the second move, which is one of the three moves. And the third one is it was solved. Yes, it was a problem, but no, it's solved. So I'm intrigued with those messages. Now, the next thing I have to do when I have an idea like this. So that's been those planted seeds in my mind to hear someone talking out both sides of their mouth, to say three opposite things, all of them with the thrust of trying to make it so the problem wasn't one they had to attend to. Now I have to flip it back on myself. So this week, I played chess with my 7-year-old grandson. And I also played a little bit of a VR video game. And I had to admit to myself, I had to recognize something that's haunted me for a while, which is I'm actually a sore loser. I mean, here I am out here espousing how you got to get good at embracing uncertainty, admitting you're wrong, all that usual stuff that I promote. We're going to be open-minded and curious and all that, sit with problems. No, I get actually physically uncomfortable playing games. Now, no, it doesn't turn into sore loser bullshit, but I noticed that vulnerability in me because nothing human is foreign to me, and I have to be able to find it in myself. So that's a whole intriguing area I'm going into. The varieties of ways in which I did get experience growing up, being competitive, the lack of experience there. For example, in high school, I was one of those counterculture kids who thought that the jocks were dumb and square. I was actually probably conflict averse. I didn't play any kind of public sports like that. I had a little experience fencing, but in terms of playing football or something like that, no, that was for the jocks. And when I look back on that, actually, no, it was conflict aversion. I didn't like losing. In general, the games I play are ones where the score is not very clear. And then you go play video games or you play board games with people, and the scores are right there. So I'm still trying to figure it out. So this is how that works for me. I'm not trying to analyze from the outside, like I got the neutral view from nowhere. I'm trying to see how the shit that humans do, including all of these ways in which we sidestep problems. Now, obviously, I'm not saying that we should always address every problem. I completely understand why most people are not really, they don't have time or energy to figure out, to explore what selves and trying are. Paula made a comment like this in the meeting 2 Sundays ago, which is or maybe last Sunday. Yeah, I mean, I'm a self and I'm trying to figure out what to try to do, but that doesn't mean that I have the time and energy to try to figure out what selves and trying are. So it's not like everybody should address all the problems. One of my favorite statements I use a lot is, sorry, I fuss elsewhere. That is, I have the problems I'm working on, you have the problems you're working on. I'm not devaluing your problems. I'm just saying that I have my own limited fuss budget. That is the problems I can fuss over, and I happen to be invested here. I don't have an opening to fuss over this other question. Okay, so be aggressive. Okay, so Crumbly, yeah, and be praised. So the interesting thing to try to get at is, where are those games where we are comfortable winning and losing, and where are the games where we're uncomfortable? And are we okay with that? Our mix, basically, that's fuss budget. So Fuss. What do I mean by fuss? I'm talking about where I pour my attention and where I'm trying to get it right. It's tied to what I think of as my happiness comes from having work for which I have infinite patience. Okay, so where I fuss is that. I'm trying to figure it out all day long. I make mistakes in the game of thinking and writing. I'm in the business of editing them. Yeah, it's half my time is spent removing half my mistakes. That's one of the features of the places where I fuss, where I'm working in ideas and writing. These are error tolerant pursuits. We've talked about this before here. There are other jobs where you can't afford to be as error tolerant as I am. I generate errors all day in my writing and then I go fix them, and it doesn't humiliate me at all. That's where I fuss, and I fuss confidently and competently. Confidently because I am competent, because I've been at it so long. I remember the point at which I started to shift into what I called editorial self-efficacy. I wrote one book 8 or 9 times, and every time I found problems with it, I'd start it over again. And then there came a point where I look at my shitty prose and say, I know how to repair it. So that's editorial self-efficacy, and I've got that kind of thing put together. It was all about skill level, shame, and embarrassment. And conversely, pride. Okay, so this is the fundamental chicken and egg equation I've been playing with for these last couple of weeks, and it's going to tie right in to how I'm thinking about the Trumpists. The chicken and egg relationship between confidence and competence. And I don't like that those words are so close to each other. So you can talk about it, like skills and confidence, let's say. I mean, when you have two words that are close to each other, they're fun for wordplay, but they could get confused about them. You might mishear me as saying competent when I'm saying confident or what. Here's what I mean. If I have skills at something, then I'm going to feel more competent. Sorry, more confident. I will feel like I'm good for something. And if I feel like I'm good for something, I'm not at risk of feeling like I'm good for nothing. So I need a certain degree of confidence, which I think might be tied into that's on the spectrum of pride, um, uh, praise, um, embarrassment, shame. All of that's got to do with this fundamental calculus that I think is going on in the background for all of us. I mean, more and more I am paying attention to what I've called egonomics or affirmationomics, but it's really about how do I keep confident? Because if I'm not confident, I will fumble and mess up. So I need to be competent at something in order to feel confident, but I also need confidence to try to get competent at something. Because it's hard. It's getting, pledging to get good at soccer or rugby or any of those things. Like saying I'm committing to trying to do that. That's basically a double or nothing kind of bet. Either you'll come away with greater confidence, or you'll fail and you'll come away with a loss of confidence. So it's not actually double or nothing. It's worse in some ways. It's not nothing. It's just you lose. So the big insight for me from that has been that, of course, in times like this, when it's getting very hard to feel competent at anything, it's gotten cutthroat, very cutthroat in the world of, like, if you want to be a success at something, there's a lot of people competing for those positions, and success has generally meant more and more complicated abilities. Be a doctor now is harder than it was 200 years ago. To be a computer programmer or something like that. Now, all of that's about to change with AI. But in the meantime, when people are feeling a lack of confidence and it's getting harder to get the skills to feel competent or skilled, there's going to be an opening for someone like Trump, because all Trump is selling, certainly got nothing to do with policy, is confidence no matter what. Confidence for free. Confidence decoupled from your incompetence. Just think of what a perfect product that would be to sell to an anxious population or to an increasingly anxious population. So all this is also tying into my reading this week of a book by Peter Turchin called End Times, where he's talking, I think we talked about this last week, I can't remember, elite overproduction. Too many people vying for, expecting they could be among the elite, the intellectual elite, the money elite, whatever it is. When you get a bunch of people trying for a bunch of jobs that are harder and harder to come by, you end up with major societal disruption, according to this guy, this Russian um, uh, uh, researcher who's working just the quantitative data across centuries, millennia. And he says, whenever you get elite overproduction, you tend to get a very big destabilization and a populist movement. This shows up in Chinese dynasties. It shows up right now in the United States. So he's saying, and it's a theory, and I'm playing with the theory and enjoying the curiosity it's stirring in me. But now think about this. If that's true, so let me just summarize what I said before. And then, and by the way, I don't want to just keep on rambling. This is one idea I'm starting with. I invite you to propose something here. And also not just to do the autobiographical. There's a move I don't think is where the see if you can pose anything autobiographical as a conundrum, as a problem. If you report in a pat way, that's not going to stir the intellectual bicuriosity. So, for example, look at what I just did. I said this thing about I laughed at a few friends. I gossiped about a few friends who dismissed a problem, and then I flipped it on myself and said I could feel my basal skin response increase. That is my anxiety increase. Playing fucking chess with my 7-year-old grandson. It's pretty pathetic. And part of it is also probably the stigma around chess, because the last time I had played chess was when I was 7 years old, and my brother beat me at it, and I didn't go back to it. I did play a lot of Go with my daughter, and that's where I noticed the anxiety was at its most. So so what I'm saying is, if you make a statement, I haven't read yours yet, Michael, but if you make a statement, see if you can leave something open within it. And you may have already done this, so that we've got something that teases our curiosity, our intellectual bicuriosity, that we can look at it from opposite sides. That's where we're going with this. But in the meantime, I just want to say, okay, I'm going to summarize where I'd gotten so far, which is this chicken and egg relationship where I need to be skilled in order to feel confident, but I need confidence in order to try to get skilled. Fundamental interest of mine. Then I mentioned the Trump way out, and it's not just Trump, anybody could do this, who says, actually, it's easy, and you deserve all the confidence you want, regardless of whether, if you join my team, if you're MAGA, you can have unchecked confidence no matter what. It's divorced from your incompetence. What an appeal that would be to people in this era. And the only thing I'm tagging onto that is AI is going to make that a huge problem. It's a huge problem. Think about the elite overproduction once we've automated elite activity, elite skills. Think of how many people are going to lose their jobs, lack confidence, not know where to even go for next jobs, because so many fields will have been decimated, or more than decimated, not 1 in 10 jobs gone, but way more than that. And how many of the people who were in those jobs will be swarming to other positions. It will be an unprecedented elite overproduction because of the shrinking potential for those jobs. This is an old topic. Okay, so Michael, good. We can always create jobs. We can always create jobs. See what you did there. Okay. Okay. I don't mind losing if it's a fair game. I don't coach you soccer anymore because, yeah, no, Michael, I'm gonna poke here. and feel free to take offense and poke back. Feel free. Both of those statements, the last two statements, are pat. I mean, here's what I could. I'm gonna play it out. Okay, so I just raised a problem, and now I'm just gonna read some feedback from this guy, Michael De Sosa Cruz. He says we can always create jobs. Okay, never mind. Let's pick up. I was wrong. Let's take another topic. There's no problem here. We can always create jobs. Yeah. And I know that's your pat solution. And I have yet to. Here's what I'd ask you to do, my friend. Yeah, the issue is real resources. That's right. It's actually real resources. So that's why your modern monetary theory still is dubious to me. And I have yet to hear what I would like from you sometime. Nothing doesn't have to be here because we're not going to get into modern monetary policy here. Is I would like to hear you make a counter argument to modern monetary policy that you don't dismiss right away. Because remember, there's another move. You can say that's not a problem because we always create jobs, or you could say modern monetary policy is how we would always create jobs, and there's nothing wrong with it. There are no downsides to it. It's a panacea. Okay, both of those are saying there's a problem, but it's already solved. And I'm not actually interested in modern monetary policy here. I'm interested in how we shop among interpretations, how we do this work of thinking things up a notch and then another notch. So, you may be comfortable. You may say, Jeremy, sorry, I heard everything you just said about this competence chicken and egg thing. And I heard everything you said about how things are going to get more difficult. And it's sorry, I don't fuss there. You could say that. That'd be fine. All right. Yes, I'm actually going to truncate the modern policy. Here's what I recommend, Michael. Do a YouTube live. I will come to it on modern monetary policy. I'd come to that, but it's not the topic here. I raised a question. It may not be one that interests everybody, but it's a question that's on my mind. And let's see what Dan's got here. It seems like you're getting at whatever method people can find to mitigate the risk of doing something new can be mitigated by denying it or accepting. Yes, Dan, that's what I'm getting at. And here's why. I have real respect for this problem with doing something new. I have real deep respect for what you could call the hardening of the smarteries. So I am getting at the problem, and then immediately I flip it to say it's not a problem of deficient souls. It's a problem that humans have to deal with because of how habits work. What a habit is, how habits end up with their own momentum. And to break a habit means trying something new. And the problem with trying something new or thinking outside whatever box or cage or kennel you're in is that a lot of what's out there is also impotent, won't work. There's a lot of crap outside the box. It's not like thinking outside the box, you get it in one. That would be, beginner's luck. Like, yeah, I'm doing something wrong. I'm going to do something different. And what I do different is a surefire thing. I had an interesting conversation about this yesterday with my buddy, Joan Blades. We take a weekly walk and we're different by temperament. And at one point in the walk, she has become more willing to doubt in my company than she was at first. We've been walking for close to 10 years now. So she was the co-founder of Move On, and she was used to a certain amount of authority within the progressive movement. And between the kind of conversations we've had that have been sometimes very difficult, I realized that a bunch of us. I'm about to be 70. I think she's about to turn 70. We're all settled into our ways. I'm settled into being unsettling. What a pain in the ass I am. I mean, I keep on stirring shit up. Okay, so anyway, we're on this walk, and she would not have predicted the whole Trump debacle we're in. She would not have predicted it. So she's kind of dealing with that cosmic wedgie. And she's saying what we need to do now is is give up on certain things. She talked about it as what was it? Like a joyous funeral, she said, like giving up on some techniques, some strategies, and trying new things, she said. And uh, I then said, okay, yeah, tell me about what kind of things should we give up? And she went right back to cycling the message, we need to try new things. And I had to asked her 2 or 3 times, and she could not get to what the things were that we needed to drop. She instead went to, I think my role now is to get people to see that we need to drop some things and try new things. So that's where I am. Um, uh, that's kind of what I'm talking about as if you're in habits, it's very hard to drop them. It's very scary to drop them. That's why I'm highly suspicious of anyone, including me, claiming pure open-mindedness. That's a misunderstanding of what it is to be human. Most of my decisions are made automatically by habit. And I couldn't bear to be any way but that. And at the extreme of that, if I declared that all assumptions make an ass of you and me and vowed to never have any more assumptions, I would be at that point officially completely dysfunctional, probably schizophrenic. As if I didn't have any assumptions. I have to operate on assumptions. We talked about this before. From Terry's and my perspective, this neuroscience perspective, the mind is not a computer by any stretch, but it is a virtual computer maker. As we take tough judgment calls and we process them down to habit. If I'm ambivalent about something, I have to turn it takes it will rise to consciousness because I don't know what to do. I'm dealing with doubt and anxiety. Doubt and anxiety are actually, from my perspective, they're visceral. I don't think cognitive dissonance nails it. It's not cognitive, it's emotional dissonance that could be stirred by something cognitive, like I don't know what to do in this situation. I have to turn that into habit as quick as possible. Um, that's what that would turning something into habit is turning it into basically an algorithm, which is basically turning it into a computer. So my mind is not a computer, or my consciousness is not a computer. It's a virtual computer maker. And the way I see it, the long view is that um, all life is habit or algorithm accumulating. Um, Animal life, neuronal life, is habit seeking, and human life is habit jonesing. We can't cluster flux we're dealing with. We are desperate to turn things into habit. So coming back around to what Dan was talking about here, I am getting at whatever method people can find to mitigate the risk of doing something new. That means to pop out of habit and rethink it. And this is especially acute in people who have joined cults. Because when you join a cult, you're doing it on impulse, love at first sight. It feels like you have discovered a genius solution, a breakthrough. And what have you broken through? You've broken through the ambivalence about what to do. And once you have done that, you're in this fanatical state. And the fanaticism is, I did write something about that this week that I think is useful to bring up if I can find it quick enough. Let's see. Sorry, guys. Um, yeah, it was just it was short. I should know it by heart, but it was about um, it's a blindness. It's an emotional blindness. Um, let's see. Here we go. A magic spell is almost there. Sorry. Uh, and actually, I learned a new word about this for this work. Amathia. Let's see. It's a there were a few. Fanaticism is a fever that blinds you to your fever. You look sick but only to those who haven't caught the fever. So I think there's something about that, the way that passions take over, that is fascinating because it actually blinds you. This is the dumbass death spiral I've been talking about. So anyway, let's see. Back to your statement. No matter how confident I am in a bed, I remain still more confident. Recognize that I need to the real or illusion of certainty to feel confident and gain competence. Beautifully put. Dan, thank you for hearing me. It is my joy comes from being understood. It's hard. This stuff is hard, and most people. And anyway, thank you. That's exactly what I'm talking about. And you're also tying together things. Um, so we're talking. We're talking. Yeah. It just. Yes. So this is where this ties back around is to irony, or what I'll actually call dirony. Remember that dire irony. Um, take the statement, "That's my story, and I'm sticking to it." That is a quintessentially ironic statement. And notice how it works. I am stepping out of my story for a second. I am observing my story. I'm even calling it a story which implies fiction. And then I'm hopping back into it. The thing starts with a wink. Yeah, I know that's my story. And then it dives back into it. For me, our only salvation, I mean, I may be fanatical about this, is if we can get better at admitting we need these fictions. That I need these fictions to stay confident enough to keep working on my competence. And the competence could be anything like getting good, becoming a lawyer or a surgeon, or it could be just surviving. I need that certainty to feel competent. Also, notice how it works. If I don't show confidence, I go out in the world, that shit's contagious. People look at me as unsteady. They look at me that way. I start to feel more unsteady. I've got to stay clear of that damn thing. So, this business about optimal illusion, safe escapism, uh, a strategic gullibility, idsercise, that is exercising your id, your jerky nature, or off jerking. Those are I think we need to get better at that. And last night I did notice this about it. More and more, I feel like I need to take my comforting, confidence breeding, um, uh, mojo boosting stuff in fiction. I don't trust it anymore in the real world. Hey, Azrael, and everybody, nice to have you here, by the way. But I don't trust it anymore. I used to take it in partnership. That shit's scary to me now. I wouldn't trust it. I mean, sometimes I get lonely, but then I remember people are the worst. So, I mean, and me included. I mean, I wouldn't want to impose myself on anyone. So I think I need to take my comfort, my mojo from all sorts of fictions that I know are fictions, like movies and masturbation, all that sort of stuff. Um, uh, uh, and only last night do I realize that the reverse is also true, which is, hey, Donna, nice to have you back, which is it's dangerous to treat your life like a fiction. And I think we do this a lot. So this also relates to an interesting anxiety and what progress I think I've made on it. A lot of my early life was spent trying to aim my life such that by the end of my life, it would have the romantic conclusions that you get from fiction, that it would end with some kind of glorious happy ever after. And I know I meant I would die. I'm not stupid enough to think that I'm gonna have an afterlife. I mean, I'm sure I am, even though I know that's a fiction. No, there's a part of me that assumes that death is for losers and I'm an exception. But what I'm saying is there was a way in which I thought the comfort would be that I had lived my life well. And I even, a couple of years ago, when I was thrown into a post midlife crisis, I, um, uh, I had to coin the term eschatophobia, fear of last judgment. Um, because I was suddenly feeling like I had made some bad mistakes, financial mistakes. And I was feeling like, no, this just goes to show my life was a tale told by an idiot signifying nothing. And this from a guy who's an atheist. I don't believe in a judge on high who will assess my life that way. I teach fallibilism full time. And still, when I got anxious and felt like I was losing in the financial world, um, I went to that fear. Eschatophobia is fear of final judgment. So that's all the kind of stuff that you'd get from a drama, where you're thinking like it's fiction, that at the end you decide who was the good guy and who was the bad guy and all of that sort of stuff. That's treating reality like fiction. So both of those are dangerous, and I'm trying to sort them out. There's a meme going around about from Hannah Arendt, who she's saying that cultists can't tell the difference between reality and fiction. I don't think can't is the right word. They wouldn't want to, and they are very decisive about what's fiction and what's fact. It came out in one of my videos this week, which was basically, if it's negative by my subjective standards, it's fake. It's fiction. If it's positive by my standards, it's fact. That's all. It's not like they can't tell the difference. They wouldn't want to. And besides, they speak like they're the absolute authorities on what's fact and fiction. You have to be clear on what's actually going on in our minds when we're doing that. Okay, so anyway, all of that. Let me see if there's anything. There's plenty more to pick up on here. Back to your statement. No matter. Yes, that's right. We got that one. You got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, know when to run. You got to. Yes, all of that is very relevant, Michael, and thank you for bringing it up. You've got to know. Um, so this was, I think we talked about this last week. I'm fascinated by language in what I call the aspirational tense. The aspirational tenses would include things like um, uh, you can't pretend you're fair-minded just because you whine about unfairness to you. Okay, is that that's a sentiment that's important to me, but no, actually, technically, you can. Um, as so, what do I mean when I say you can't? I mean you shouldn't. So it's when I turn a should or shouldn't into a can or can't. It's a kind of a comforting move. It's a kind of an optimistic move. Notice the aspirational. So another example of aspirational tense would be if I threw out my last pack of cigarettes and I said I quit smoking. Have I? Technically, yes and no. I'm saying what I need to hear in order to motivate myself in that direction. It's related to optimism. Um, if I said crime doesn't pay, that's also in the aspirational tense. It pays extremely well if you get away with it. So yes, you've got to know when to hold them. Yeah, and fallibilism says you don't quite. You got to try to know when to hold them. That's probably closer to it. It's also why I think the serenity prayer is not just the wisdom to know, but it's the wisdom of craving to know more. It's actually the prayer is part of the wisdom to want to know better because you never know perfectly. I mean, and where do you find this? You find this in the ludic arts. You find it in gambling. Do you guys know how we ended up with all of probability theory? Do you know the story of how this started? It's fabulous. Um, Pascal is this young genius mathematician. He's got a bunch of friends who are into gambling. He's in France, and this is before anybody had thought through probability. And someone said, "You got any techniques for figuring out, your odds, when to hold and when to fold them?" And he did some quick calculations and came up with he birthed statistics. Probability theory comes out of this attempt to figure out when to hold them and when to fold them in math. In fact, by one historian of scientists account, I don't know if it's true everywhere. I think it probably is. This is a guy, Ian Hacking. He said that before Pascal, probability meant on good authority. So you could say it's probable that Christ will come back, though it's unlikely, because probable just meant on good authority. So, and so anyway, yes, the ludic arts, ludic meaning play, games, and games are highly constrained. Um, that's what makes me nervous playing them, is that they're highly constrained. There's no way to fudge them if you play honorably. And I don't cheat on my 7-year-old when we're playing chess. That'd be so tacky. I wouldn't put it past me, but I do have the self-discipline to avoid that. And he does too. He's very honorable in the game. But real life is different from that because the life is not a game. It's got things in common with a game, but the rules are way squirrelier, and you get these people who don't play the game, they game the play. So anyway, all of that. Let's see where we are here. So I'm not keeping up here. Um, to what end must we oft jerk to our own egotainment? Thank you for bringing up. That's a great question. Um, uh, let's see. I just want to make sure every now and then it's okay, but certain people are livid about it, like 24/7. Seems like right. Okay, so we have a couple of ways we could handle those people who jerk off nonstop. One version of it is that's that's obsessive fanatical egotism. Um, Such egotism is beneath me, and they really need to stop. This is that hand gesture I use where I pound the table. We really need to stop. And I am a crusader for people not jerking off all the time. I pulled my hand back. I'm now jerking off. Right. So that's one move. I would never do that. In fact, this has become um, a new series of shorts I've been doing. I haven't. It's not full time yet, but it's a podcast I'm pretending to do called "Nothing Like Us." Welcome to "Nothing Like Us," the put down uplift show. I am DJ Smug, also known as Exempt by Contempt. And you know what I hate? It's people who are livid about 24/7 jerking off. And then I go on this rant about how they're nothing like us. And then I end by saying, because there's nothing like us. That is, we are the exceptions. And this is so and you know, the first one was about um egomaniacs. It was exactly like that. And the next one was about young people. And now I'm about to record one on religious people. So there's one move. And then that's a nothing like us move. Or yeah. And then the alternative to it is to say, now I'm going to take your question, Azrael. I'm going to take it and I'm going to turn it into a rhetorical one. You say, to what end must we jerk off to our own egotainment? Now, that's a great question. And that's what I meant when I said that's a great question. But actually, if you turn it into what end must we jerk off as a rhetorical question, you are doing the jerk off move that I just suggested, which is, why would anybody need to do that? I don't need to do that. Why would anybody need to do that? That's something that other deficient souls do. Now, I know that's not what you meant. I'm just playing with the rhetoric and how it steers our interpretations. So I have a policy of turning all rhetorical questions into real ones. That started when I was teaching psychology, and on the first day of class, we would basically do a nothing like us exercise where I ask every student to raise a why the fuck would they do that question. Why the fuck would people do this? I was describing, I said I was introducing the most popular psychological theory in all of history. Because I was saying, let's start with your questions. Why the fuck? This is the only one I remember from all the ones. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of students doing this, in different courses, these different semesters. But one said, "Why the hell would anybody like Nickelback?" Okay, all right. And I said, "Okay, here's the most popular theory in all of psychological research: the dipshit theory, or the barroom dipshit theory, which is the answer is because they're dipshits." They're a different species from us. They're not like me and you, reasonable people. That's the answer. So that's what the rhetorical question begs. And I'm saying, if you want to get beneath it, and I certainly do, to the real question, it's obvious to me why we would need egotainment very badly. It's kind of the most central point in my work, you could say, in biological anthropology or sociology or politics or anything, which is that human beings, because we can conceive of things, because we have the ability to imagine what's not immediately in front of us, in a way that I think with Donna a couple of weeks ago, or maybe last week, she was skeptical about, but I'm going to insist on it. That is, it's a bet I definitely place, is that potato bugs are not able to conceive of imaginary concepts like freedom or justice or unicorns or any of that, because they don't have language. They have something else. They have plenty of signals of semiotics. They work in significance. That is, they pay attention to it, but they don't have language. Because we have language, and because therefore we have concepts, we are trudging through a sandstorm of confidence eroding possibilities, all the threats and missed opportunities that no other organism can conceive. We are an incredibly anxious species, and through our imaginations, we can reassure ourselves. So think of it not as an intellectual pursuit. It's not cognitive. I'm talking about emotions. What drives us most of all is comfort in our own skin. Doubt makes uncomfortable. Ambiguity makes us uncomfortable for the reasons that Dan Cummings brought up earlier. That is, if I'm not going to stick with a habit, which habit do I take up next? Do I have to shop around among habits? That could be wasteful. It could be deadly. I could spend the rest of my short life looking for a better alternative to the habit I've currently got. So all of that anxiety makes us need mojo boosts. And like I'm saying, I need them. That's why I think we have to get better at recognizing our own need, our craving, our appetite for confidence reassurances, for the affirmation of one sort or another. Doesn't have to come from other people. Plenty of people are legends in their own mind. If you can't find anybody else who will give you affirmation, you can just do your own pep talks and talk about how wonderful you are, or how your idea has solved everything, or whatever. So what I'm saying is that, to me, that's the answer to the question. To what end must we off jerk to our own egotainment? So my approach with someone who's, let's say, religious would be something like, yeah, I'm not religious. I don't believe in God, but don't get me wrong, I'm as delusional as the next guy. Or it might be like, amen to that. I totally get what you're doing. I masturbate. And I remember, I'm trying to demote the high status ones like religion to an elevated status for all egotainment. I think we need it, and we take it in different forms. Each religion is its own form. The 45,000 different sects of Christianity are each their own lifestyle brand version of egotainment. Whether you like horror films, whether you like rom-coms, whether you like action films, those are their own versions. Whatever video game, where do you not fuss? Because you don't need to fuss in these things. You get the mojo for free. And my only problem with a guy like Trump is that he's pretending it's real. It's a circle jerk vanity project on the most vulnerable part of our system. And it is nonstop for him. And he's teaching people how to do it nonstop. But in terms of him having a pep rally where people get to feel like they're confident, I'm all for that. I just think we need to do it safer. Okay. Would the vegan guy therefore be choking the chicken? Oh, good. I'll see. I have to read the follow up here. Let's see. Every now and then it's okay. No, so all right. So I have to get to one more thing before we get to Michael, and he's got a series of things here. But is the difference? This is raising questions here. Because what I do, remember, I am settled on being unsettling, not for the sake of being unsettling, because I'm trying to think up things up. I live off of getting new ideas. And so you raise points that are really interesting to me. So how should we meter it? Um, I think you're onto something when you say it shouldn't be all the time, 24/7. Um, okay, that's easy. That's what absolute would mean. So absolute power, absolute egotainment corrupts absolutely because nothing can penetrate it. All right, now here's a problem I deal with. I've lived a much safer life than probably most of you. Um, as a result, I'm kind of a wuss. I haven't had as hard a life as you guys, as most people in the world. I'm just assuming as you guys. I could be wrong. Um, all right, so I should be doing less of that egotainment, and I actually think there's something to this argument. I think there's a noblesse oblige about it. If you are living a relatively safe life, you should take more risks into doubt. It's just a I have no way of proving that that's how the universe is. I will say that it's really dangerous to have people who take every increase in confidence as a boost in confidence. I think you got to offset it. And it creeps me out when I'm dealing with someone who has all the freedom and all the safety and will not doubt themselves. Really creeps me out. But at the same time, there's another whole factor in here, which is we have different levels of what's it called? It, I don't know if it's still true in neuroscience, but it was called high and low low gain reticular activating system. So it's basically like a volume control. Some people are hypersensitive. Um, it's like the volume is way turned up for them on the inside, and some people are way insensitive because the volume is turned way down. Um, and this could be different in different domains. For example, some people like heavy metal music um, because nothing lighter than that penetrates them. I I know that there's a wide range of sensitivity sexually. Some people basically it's they're overstimulated with light touch. Other people can hardly feel it with a jackhammer. Um, so how does that play into how much should you be indulging in egotainment? I don't assume that there's a rule about this, but I am trying to get somewhere to where I can figure out where an excess is, because it's basically where I'm going to draw the line on being an asshole. Um, that is, at some point, uh, it becomes a danger to the rest of us. And I think that's where the egotainment gets dangerous. That's why I think you need safe escapism, not just any escapism. Another way to think about it that I have used in the past a lot about where the standard should be, because you can. Azrael says every now and then is okay. I would notice as I'm making a statement like that that that's me making pronouncements as if I were in charge of the world. And I'm not in charge of the world, and I wouldn't want to convince myself I am, because that would be a way to pat out, to act like I've already solved it. I'm trying to tease out problems. So here's one way I've thought about it. I've been to a heavy metal concert. I've been to a Trump rally. The only difference is what happens at the end in the parking lot. After a after a heavy metal concert, people zip up, get in their car, and go back to reality. After a Trump rally, people think they've seen something more real than reality. It's not how far out you go, it's not even how long you spend out, it's whether you remember to come back. So this does play into the 24/7 that Azrael mentions, but it also doesn't define, all right, not 24/7, but how about 24/6, or how about 23/6? It's simply saying you've got to keep on coming back. And in some situations, you don't have to come back as much. So, for example, if you're super rich, there is going to be a temptation to not come back. Why would you have to go back and face the harsh realities? You've buffered yourself against them. That's one of the dangers there. Anyway, so the way I've put that. So this is once again me doing what Azrael did. Listen to this pronouncement: is if I were in charge of the world. Take your flights of fancy, but always with a return ticket to reality secure in your heart pocket. That's me giving advice. It's not me saying the rule is that you should always do this and never do that. But it's damn close to it. And why am I doing that? Well, I'm taking a stab at how you would decide where you're over the line into the danger zone. So this is kind of fundamental to psychoproctology work. And I'm going to get to you, Michael. We still have some time here, but I want to. The psychoproctology work starts with a constraint-based approach to ethics, to morality. Here's what I mean. It's what we would call in philosophy the via negativa, not paying attention to what you should do, but what you shouldn't do. So in a free adaptive society, you don't get to tell people what to do, but you still have to put a leash on assholes, or else it won't remain a free adaptive society. So that was a conundrum I set up for myself, and I actually think of it like a flat Earth model. Here's what I mean by that. I don't believe in a flat Earth. Don't. It's just a metaphor, which is like this. Look around the world. There's obviously so many perfectly viable ways or sufficiently viable ways to live, and they don't have a lot in common. There are some common elements of them. I would say that the search for confidence would be one of those main drivers, as well as food and all that. But anybody who gets really persnickety about what you should and shouldn't do, that's dubious to me, because if you look around the world, that's just moralizing bullshit. Apparently, there's lots of ways to live. Shouldn't instead of should. I like that. Yes. So we're talking about a constraint-based approach. And the way I mean it, like the flat Earth, is you're alive, you're on this big surface with its ups and downs. You can get to higher or lower places, and the ups and downs keep on shifting. If you were a lawyer 10 years ago, you were high up. It may be with AI that you'll be now in a valley, whatever, what they call fitness landscapes. But roam it. Be all over the place. Who's going to tell you what you should do? Like, this is the only place to be. Let's corral all people into this on the count of three. No, don't do that. At the same time, there are these soft, fuzzy edges that you can fall over and drag all of society down with. It's like the flat Earth. It's like you come to the edge there, and I don't know. It's a fuzzy area, but I am trying to get clear on what the fuzzy area is, and this is where Dan's comments come in. Dan is curious about the same thing I am, and he's trying out things about it, like the not 24/7, and I would agree with that. And then you get into the gray area. Well, not 24/7, then what? I mean, one of my definitions of an asshole is very straightforward. It's got to do with the biological roots of confirmation bias. All organisms have to take in the energy they can use to regenerate themselves and keep out the energy that will degenerate them. They are selectively interactive. You bring that into the realm of emotions and thoughts, what do you get? You get confirmation bias. A decent person, remember, I'm using the word decent, like you be anywhere on the fucking flat Earth. It doesn't matter to me. It might matter to me, but live and let live, as long as you don't, as long as I don't have to live with you. Do your thing. But a decent person is someone who recognizes confirmation bias as a problem they have to manage in themselves. And an asshole is someone who treats confirmation bias as a solution to all of their problems. And this week, just in the last couple of days, I've gotten really into trying to figure out how the distilled version. I'm just looking it up right here. I just posted it as a AI Trump tells it like it is. It's fascinating. It's a fascinating cycle to me. Listen to this thing. You're being unfair. I acted honorably. And anyway, I had to act dishonorably. I did what I had to for the greater good, which you hate because you're evil. And you're dumb too, because you're still trying to behave honorably for the greater good, when really it's just who gets away with more crap and ends up more powerful. Not that I believe that. I believe in acting honorably, and you're being unfair. I acted honorably, and anyway, I had to act dishonorably. It's a loop. You're moving. So this would be a hermetically sealed hermeneutic. This is your way of doing confirmation bias as a solution to all of your problems. That is, it's a shell game that keeps on running you around. Um, and it's been a fascination for me for a long time, because once you receive this closure, this constrained closure, you are you're impenetrable, you're incorrigible, literally uncorrectable. And that's what I think Trump is selling, is exactly that setup. It's got to do with means and ends, but it's actually what I would call endless me's. It's just me, 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 me. I was no, no, I'm right. No, I'm right. No, I'm right. Which also would tie in. I'm working on how it ties in with this thing about it's not a problem. It is a problem, but I just solved it, and it's unsolvable. All of those would be ways to close down something, and I think it's once again this distinction between um, sorry I fuss elsewhere and that's a bullshit problem. Um, Also an area of confusion. Finally, I'm getting back to Michael. Provided this is not his his pat conclusions about MNT, we got things to work with here, Michael, my friend. My friend, remember, I'll give you shit. You give me shit back. This is a loving conversation. This is truth emergent among disagreements among friends, and we have this fascinating pairing here because there's a way in which um, you seem to totally get what I'm trying to say, and then you've got this commitment that, and I'm still trying to understand the relationship between them. Okay, there are some things that we know for certain, right? For example, some force pulls us down. Another another example: only the U.S. government creates U.S. dollars. If you gather this, no, actually, I disagree with this. I am a fundamentalist fallibilist. Um, uh, okay, so we don't know. I would argue we don't know anything for certain. Um, I That is not to say that everything is equally uncertain. That's where people take fallibilism often. It's another path thing. It's the one where you say it's a mystery, we'll never be able to solve it. You never can tell. That one I've disparaged for decades as the doctrine of foregone inconclusion. And it is usually a way of saying, shut the fuck up. I'm I'm not going to change my mind. That's my story and I'm sticking to it. But I don't know things for certain. I have high confidence in certain bets. Um, but I don't know for certain all sorts of things. And here's an illustration that gets used in philosophy. For thousands of years, people in the tropics had never seen water in the form of ice. They don't get the weather that does it, and they didn't have refrigeration. So if you went to any one of them, they had plenty, they had generations, their entire lives, they'd never seen ice. And if someone had proposed it to them, they would have thought it was inconceivable. I mean, no, there's no evidence of it. So that's a kind of cosmic wedgie. Someone shows them ice and they say, well, okay, apparently I was wrong about that. Um, uh, so I don't build that way. And not only that, even if you do so this would be the assumption, and it's been there since the beginning of written concepts. It's what I call matheism. That is the godification of math. So math is irrefutable. 1+1 = 2. Um, and so this is actually deduction, not induction or abduction. It's deduction, which is, if Socrates is a man and all men are mortal, then Socrates is mortal. But deductions rest on inductions. Like, how did I figure out that all men are mortal? Well, there's a lot of trial and error in that. That's induction. And how do I know that Socrates is a man? Um, I do it by what's called abduction. So there's a way in which they all feed on each other. But this idea that we can build, it's basically the heart of Plato, is you start with some irrefutable certainties and you build it right up from there. Now, if you've ever built, I don't know, Michael, are you into Legos? Someone was into Legos. Even if you're building with Legos, which have a nice snug fit, I am surrounded by Legos, by the way. Both of my grandkids are certain they are going to grow up to become Lego professionals. But if you build them high enough, there's still enough slop in there that the thing can topple. So So what you're suggesting here has a platonic feel to it. And I am decidedly not platonic. And I have a bunch of friends who are decidedly platonic. I mean, it's just bizarre how I ended up with these decidedly platonic friends. But they basically are operating on the assumption if you start with one master algorithm, these would be the original axioms in geometry or something like that. Or for one of these friends of mine, he's totally into Wolfram and his mathematics. If you start with this basic paradigm, cellular automata, you can build out all of reality. If you start with Newton's laws, you can build out all of reality. All of those things, that's the realm of the Platonic patness. So I don't start there. And that's a good reason to decide whether you like me or not. Uh, um, okay, and then the question is, all right. So here's another version, Michael. I'm just tweaking. I'm playing with these ideas, and it's nothing personal. So let's take your Nana's thing. You don't should all over yourself. There's two versions of should. One is my internal shoulds. That is what I think I should do. These are basically what I incorporate into habit. Like if I need to go to the bathroom, I should shit. Um, those are self-directed, and the other are the shoulds from outside. Um, there is, I'm guessing you know about this one, dear Michael. What's it called? It's Hume's guillotine. I'm trying to remember what it is. That uh, there is no way to get from is to ought. Um, and he's right in a strictly logical sense. But there is an interesting relationship between ises and oughts that has been the focus of my biological research, which is how do you get organisms that have their internal shoulds? That is, that limit what happens. I think of myself as limiting what happens. I take an energy, it can be used for lots of things, and I limit what happens with that energy. So I remain someone who can limit what happens with energy. That's what I think I am at core. Okay, that's my internal, you could say it's my will power. And the power doesn't come from the energy. The toast I had for breakfast isn't the power. The power is my ability to constrain that power down to what I think I should do, or what I feel I should do, or if I were a plant, what I am adapted to do, what my habits do for me. Okay. Now, think about the term free will. It's actually an oxymoron. What we dream of is no external shoulds, so we can operate exclusively from our internal shoulds. My internal shoulds are my will, and the ideal would be nothing would be getting in my way. That's the idealization. It's actually not. It would not be, if I didn't get any pushback from reality, I wouldn't exist. Um, No, and also if you don't get any pushback, if you're a spoiled brat like Donald Trump, you don't get any pushback, you end up pathological like he does, which was a wonderful theme of a movie I saw recently. I can't remember which. It would really came out in I forget which one. Anyway, shouldn't instead of should. Okay, so um yeah, let me see. There is a way in which they are reflexive of each other, at least in the human realm. So I've got my to-do list, and I'll tend to focus on it because it's shorter than my to-don't list. But at least if I have to explain the origins of life, I have to start with how things become unlikely, how unlikelying happens. Because if I only think about what happens, I miss the most fundamental source of what makes me a creature that has my shoulds, that have my internal shoulds. Okay, so it's always this. Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that it's fun for you. I think your AI Trump video are so good. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. So we're still playing with the should and shouldn't thing. Um, And at least what I was saying is, I mean, I'm not applying this across the board, but I do think it is useful to pay attention to what doesn't happen. And I'll point to 3 areas at least, I think I might have mentioned this last week, where the biggest insights we've gotten into how life works comes from looking at what doesn't happen. Uh, Darwin is certainly an example. It's the non-survival of the unfit. And when the unfit disappear, it changes what happens next. As it's the end of the line for certain things. So he's saying, stop looking for God shooting everything into existence. Start paying attention to how things fall apart and how life is struggling against that falling apartness. This week, I don't remember it this week, probably so. I mentioned it, I think maybe last week. God is uh, God is willpower in the sky, the ultimate and original willpower. It wills everything into being. But if you took away that intentionality or its shouldness, it would be God would be falling apart. That is, I think there's nothing more universal in our universe than falling apart. The second law of thermodynamics is just that. So to me, if you want to say what is the fundament from which everything comes about, I've got to explain how I'm struggling against that tendency to fall apart. That's what I do to stay alive. Okay. So anyway, let me see what else we got here. I'm not keeping up, and I'm probably bonking. We're getting close. Instead of internal should it be internal shouldn'ts? Well, I'm saying in a way, Michael, I'm saying in a way that it is internal shouldn'ts. My body. So oh, sorry, this is what I was going to touch on. So we got Darwin. We've also got information theory, which is about what doesn't happen. Information theory, where we get bits and bytes, a bit of information. I mentioned this, I think, last week, is when you take a coin, it's got 2 possibilities and you eliminate one. Basically, bits and bytes are about the elimination of possibilities. What doesn't happen defines what becomes information in this technical sense. It's not information about anything for anyone. That's the problem with it. But it was a brilliant insight and has given us a lot of what we've got in computational computer theory is information theory. And it's about what doesn't happen. It's how you constrain or prevent things from happening. Now, you also get the same thing in the source of the second law of thermodynamics, which is things fall apart because it's more likely that things will be in disorder than in order. So it's about the unlikelification, the unlikeliness. It's not the unlikelification, but it's the unlikelying of order. So those are 3 major insights, and they all came from paying attention to what doesn't happen. Now getting to points about, so notice the paradoxes. So a lot of what's going on in my writing is also to notice the ironies. It should be shouldn'ts. Do you see yourself saying that? It's the same. It's the same one I play with all the time. You shouldn't be judgmental. Is judgmental, right? Okay. So yes, it is. But I would still say that I am mostly what I am a product of what I don't do. What's presented is a product of what's prevented. And part of what's prevented in my case is externally prevented. That is, I have a roof over my head. And I have friends who say, don't go there. And I have plenty of other externally imposed ones, but I also have internally imposed ones. The relationship between self and other is yes. This is all about absence in Terry's book. Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, so free won'ts is what we're talking about. So yes, beautiful. You're getting all this stuff. Good. And I had trouble with the term absence in his book, Incomplete Nature. This Terry Deacon, for those who don't know. And I should also say he's likely to have moved out of town by March, which is terrifying to me. Not terrifying, but it's very sad for me and for him too. He really wishes he could stay in town here. We took a dog walk this morning. We take one almost every morning. They are the best conversations of my life. And it looks like they're now going to be much reduced because of a constraint, an absence. So I'll bring this right back to the concept of absence. Absence is a funny term. What he means by it is absence in with respect to expectation. You only find absences in terms of counterfactuals. It could have been otherwise. So it's something that humans can discover because with language we can do that. But it's not total voids. Um, it gets. I don't know how far to go into this. I meant to do that free will. That's right. That's good. And that's also your. It's not only is that free will. Um, no, this is. I don't remember where this came up this week, but God grant me one good reason for what I want to do or just did. I meant to do that, and here's why. God always supplies a reason. I just love that. Yes, Terry is moving away from me. I pledged to go visit him in Medford, Oregon, every month, and this is a major shift for him that he doesn't want, but it's kind of being imposed on him, so I have to live with that. He talks about our work together as his mistress. He's married. Um, uh, and I said to him the other day, I know it's a mistress in terms of it competing with, for example, your marriage, but it's not a mistress in that you're not taking pleasure off this. You're the one custodian of these ideas that can give them a good launch. And for you to be dragged away from that is unconscionable from my perspective, but go for it. I mean, I told him, look, if it was any other buddy, I'd say that's hard. Do what you got to do. This is more than that. The guy has got something that I think needs to be understood in the sciences, in our efforts to figure out what we actually are. Um, let's see. Let's see. Go all the way, Jeremy. Take it to the touchdown. I'm not sure what you're referring to there, but it might be me moving to Medford. It's a possibility, and not only that, Terry's generally a cool cucumber when it comes to um, our friendship. That was a wonderful thing for me to adjust to because I tended to be much more effusive, much more cheesy, much more romantic. I think that this is a wonderful interaction. But for the first 25 years, the closest he got to that was saying that this has been an excellent collaboration. And it became a running joke for us because I once a year I allow myself to be cheesy with him and he jokes about it. Anyway, with this move underway, he's a little bit more like, I hope you come visit. And I will. Is that what you mean by take it for a touchdown, or do you mean something else? I don't know what I have left. I'm generally pretty good at dealing with the split ends and the various side points here, keeping track of them. But by now, I may not be. I probably dropped a thread or two or three or four, and I'd welcome anybody bringing it back there. Here's what I want to say, though. Above all, before we go, um, good Lord, let's see. Uh, uh, this address tomorrow at 11 o'clock, California time. For a real sit down and do this without you just having to listen to me babble for this long. All are invited. We will take up your topics. I will try to keep it engaging for anybody who shows up. Last time we did this, 3 people showed up. And I won't continue it if people don't show up much. But as long as it feels fruitful to people and to me, then I'll keep doing it. So tomorrow is the second take on it. Um, uh, I won't record it yet, but if we get going, then yeah, let's record it. And it's a chance for us to do this on a much more level playing field where we can play with each other's ideas and you can tease me ruthlessly to my face. And you don't have to show your face and you don't have to talk. You can just be a spectator or whatever. But what would be great is if you used it the way I've used Terry's walks all this time. I think of things through the day. I have ideas through the day. I'll have them while I'm working, while I'm playing. I'll have them at night getting stoned. I'll have them at night when I'm watching TV. I'll have them through the night. I'll have them first thing in the morning. That's always a rich time for me for getting new insights. And then I have these thoughts I want to play with. And then I go out on a walk with Terry and we play with them. And That's what I'm trying to offer to other people. So if you come up with an idea and you want to play with it, then we play with it tomorrow at 11 o'clock. We play with it some here, but it's harder because you have to type and I get to talk. So come tomorrow, especially if you've got some ideas you want to play with. And if not, you know me, I can babble nonstop. But it'd be better if we were playing with your ideas. And this is serious play. That's what irony is about. You cordon off an area. This is also related to the thing about constraint. You say, this is the arena we're working within. Now play in there. Serious play is that same kind of oxymoron. Free will, freedom within constraints. And when I get together and jam with people who have constraints in common, it's one of the most wonderful things I know. That is, we're in roughly the same part of the maze. If you think of life as a maze, it's a place, I call it from affinity to beyond. So there's a kind of conversation where you're over here and I'm over here, and we can shout and say, hey, what's it like over there? All right, have fun over there. But there's another kind where you and I meet in the same cul-de-sac of the maze, not a cul-de-sac, but it's a cove within the maze. And we say, we both arrived here at these assumptions, at these basic boundary conditions. Let's play with where we go next. Let's go exploring together. That's what this is about. Affinity, from affinity to beyond. There's a little bit of tugging, like when you say, you're over there, you should come over here. It's more interesting than over there. There's that kind of intervention, but that's not what I mostly want to do. I mostly want to let go when someone is busy fussing elsewhere. But that's that same kind of, so serious play, irony. I'm going to read you a quote that I find lovely on the subject. Irony. The real marriage of true minds is for any two people to possess a sense of humor or irony pitched in exactly the same key, so that their joint glances at any subject cross like interarching searchlights. That's Edith Wharton. The real marriage of true minds is for any two people to possess a sense of humor or irony pitched in exactly the same key, so that their joint glances at any subject cross like interarching searchlights. I want to just add one thing that came to me as I heard this just now, as with me reading it, which is, it's one thing for you and me to wink about the cluelessness of someone else. It's a major bonding experience for us to do that. And in a way, Terry and I, my first encounter with him was like that. We were both at something that was a little bit more romantic than we both were, having experienced plenty of that kind of romantic humanism. It was kind of like, let's all be kind to each other on the count of three sort of thing. And there was a wink going on, like, yeah, we're not there. That's not the part of the maze where we're hanging. But then the deeper irony comes from you and me winking at each other. This is, for me, the ultimate in intimacy is for me to laugh at you with you, and for you to laugh at me with me. And for us to laugh at us with us, stuck in the human condition, which includes all the stuff that Dan was getting at earlier. The thing about just what a clusterflux we have to deal with, and how clusterfucking it is to have to deal with it. It's where compassion works for me, is to recognize that we were all in diapers a few weeks ago, and we're all dealing with way more overwhelm than any other creature has to put up with. And yeah, it's the water we swim in, and we take it for granted, and most of us can pull off a sufficient confidence, but it is worth stepping back every once in a while to realize what a weird mid-sized mammal we are. We monkeys, fumbling along with this newfound contraption called language. Just newfangled and just fanged in so many different directions. On top of that, technology. But that's, yeah, anyway, it's the winks. Yeah, winks are really what it's about. And I can see you're in it for the winks that you keep on everything you say has a wink in there. And great. This is wonderful. All right, you guys. Um, come tomorrow if you possibly can. Uh, you don't have to stay the whole time. It's not going to be like walking into one of those lonely retail shops where no one's there and you're suddenly trapped with the salesperson. It's not like that. You can leave anytime. You can make up an excuse. You can claim a subsequent engagement, which is I was planning to stay the whole time, but I don't want to stay the whole time, so I'm going to make up an excuse for why I have to go. Totally fine. This is all Fisher of Men, all catch and release. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for being here. Thank you a lot.